Right? So tonight we're going to focus on what's a spiritual way. What is a more spiritual way that I can live my life in an expanded way and really live in a way that manages my fears in a different way? Because all of us have fears, right? All of us have fears. But how we manage them makes all the difference in the world. So you ready for tonight? There's two things I want you to experience here. I want you to have a profound experience of God, and I want you to be inspired to live your greatest life. So I'm glad you're here tonight. Okay, our opening statement tonight is God is my constant guide. Is that what it says? God is my constant guide. Let's say that together. God is my constant guide. One more time. God is my constant guide. And I want you to feel that presence and power of God, the presence that's within you, that is constantly guiding and directing you to a greater life. And as spiritual beings, we begin to trust that there is a presence and power within us that is guiding us always. And that we can learn to discern the difference between the wisdom of God, that inner, the still small voice, and the voice of our fears. And the more that we pay attention to that inner guidance, the less that we need to be afraid. So tonight we dedicate this service to trusting God. To trusting God in all things. To listening to that still small voice within us. And trusting it enough to letting it lead our lives. So in all things we look to God, and in all things we give thanks, and so it is. Amen. Thank you very much. Please be seated. And now let's affirm together our church mission statement. Will you join me together? Unity of Phoenix is a loving spiritual community that welcomes all people and honors all paths to God. We are dedicated to transforming lives by inspiring and awakening individuals to discover God's Spirit within them. All right. This is the time that we move into our time of meditation and prayer. If you haven't already turned off your cell phone, please do so. And I want you to just take a moment and just really relax into the presence and power of God.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. I can feel the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
I want you to take a deep breath. And I want you to feel how good it feels when you open your heart all the way. That one of the scariest things that we do sometimes is open our heart all the way. And yet the moment we open our heart, at that moment we are in the flow of the infinite. The moment we open our heart, the infinite love of God just begins to flow through us. And healings begin to happen. Blessings, goodness, beauty, all begin to flow because our heart is open. Whatever the situation or condition that has caused you to close your heart tonight, what if you just decide to open it all the way? And to allow the infinite love of God to flow through you. God is pure love. But it's only when our heart is open that we get to experience it. So open your heart. And let the infinite love of God flow through you in amazing ways. Let the love flow into every area of your life. Let it flow into your family and your relationships. Let it flow into your work and your finances. Let it fill your home, fill your life, fill your future and your past. Let the infinite love of God move into every nook and cranny of your life. Just open your heart. Just open your heart. You're safe. God's got you. All the details will be taken care of. Open your heart and let the infinite love of God transform every detail into pure goodness, pure light, pure love. Open your heart and let God be God for you. Let God bless you and keep you, hold you and love you. Tonight we dedicate this service, this day, this week, all that we are about, to open-hearted living, to living with a wide open heart, and seeing how much of the infinite love of God we can download, how much of the love of God we can manifest in our lives, how much of the love of God we can make real, to transform every detail. There is only one presence and one power. It is God's love. And tonight we release the full power of love in our lives. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom has come, thy will is done in earth as it is in heaven. You give us this day our daily bread. You forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. You lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.
Okay, so last week we began Vision Quest 2016. Oh, for everybody who's watching us online, here's our shout out. We have people literally watching from all over the country in this process. We had 150 people sign up for this program, and I am so excited about it. So they're watching from all over the country, so wave. Have a great, can you hear me? There you go. Okay, so Vision Quest, I invited you last week to do a Vision Quest. And I invited you to take some time to leave what you know and have an experience of the unknown. And I was amazed at how many of you actually did it this week. And one of the things I asked for is that you send me a selfie of you doing your Vision Quest. And we got some great ones. Are you ready for some great selfies? Okay, are you guys ready in the booth? Give me the first one. Joanne, look at Joanne, how beautiful she is. She's in the White Tank Mountains, and she's doing her Vision Quest there. And then we have Kevin. Come on, Kevin. There's Kevin, and he's at a park at Joe Max and Tatum, right? Joe Max and Tatum. Okay. There's Les. Let's go to Les. Les, where's Les? Les, I saw Les. There's Les. Les, after the end of a 40-year relationship and leaving a job of 10 years, his Vision Quest is to be vulnerable in every area of his life. That's Les being vulnerable. Can you see it? There, absolutely. And Tina, where's Tina? Give me Tina. And behind Tina is her empty house. She is moving to Asheville, North Carolina. And her Vision Quest is that she's going to move from an enlightened place. Isn't that cool? That is so great. And then we have Lydia. Lydia is an artist in Cape Cod, and she is painting a picture. She's a painter, and she's going to paint as her Vision Quest, to do it from a new way. And then where's Marie? Marie's somewhere. Raise your hand, Marie. There's Marie, and she's at the Franciscan Renewal Center, correct? She did a time of silence, and look at her big happy face. Look at that face. She did a time of silence at the Franciscan Renewal Center over the weekend. And then let's go to Pam. Pam Peterson, our own Pam Peterson. I want to read you her email. I've had lots of ups and downs lately about my financial security, and since my company is going through lots of major changes, I've also had significant health challenges throughout 2015, which prevented me from showing up in the way I wanted to. Now I'm having back surgery tomorrow and will be out of the office even more for the next 3 or 4 months. We are holding you in prayer. Tomorrow morning, Pam Peterson. I've decided to face mine, to attempt to experience what it might feel like to actually have nothing, and to stand on the exit of an off-ramp holding a cardboard sign, to see life from the perspective of a person who has no financial security, no job, no idea where his or her next meal is going to come from. And my sign simply says, God bless you. Let's shoot it back up there. God bless you. For each person who rolled down the window and handed me money or food or said a kind word, I handed them a plain white envelope that said, thank you for caring. Inside was a thank you card, in which I wrote, as you give, so shall you receive, and also included a $20 bill. I know, it's amazing. In an hour and a half, I gave away $200, but I received $18, a water bottle, 3 granola bars, and a fruit roll-up. So you see, it's impossible to experience having nothing even when I tried. Blessing every car, every passenger, whether they made eye contact with me or not, was such a blessing to me. The elderly couple who received my last card waved me wildly over to their car. They handed me a paper bag that said God love God, written on the large red letters, and inside was a water bottle, food, a handwritten note that said, for I know the plans I have for you, said the Lord, plans of peace, not of evil, to give you a future and a hope. From Jeremiah 29:11. How perfect is that? Can we welcome Pam Peterson? Come on, Pam. Do we have a mic? Jeremy, We have a mic. Sorry. So tell me, what was the inspiration? What was the experience like for you?
Well, it was really incredible
Red? Thank you.
to really get out of my own stuff and really just go and bless other people was a profound experience. And the realization that no matter what your fears or concerns are about your own finances or your job or your health or those kinds of things, that God's got you, and God's got you in every moment. And it was impossible to experience nothing. And that was an amazing realization. I mean, I knew that, but to really experience that in such a profound way was really special.
Did you feel like you had a connection with the people that you were blessing as they went by?
You know, I did. I must have repeated the perfect protection, dozens and dozens of times. In an hour and a half that I stood there were literally hundreds of people in cars that went by. And whether they looked at me or acknowledged me or not, I just blessed every single one, looked at every passenger, every driver, and just tried to send love to people. I had one guy stopped and he rolled down the window and he said, "Do you need money?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "Well, what's your story? Why are you out here? I mean, you look like a nice lady." And I said, "I'm just out here, just blessing people." And he said, "Well, thank you for that, because, the world really needs that." And so I gave him one of my cards, and he looked at it and tossed it in the back seat of the car. And, and I thought, that'll probably end up in the trash, but whatever, it's a gift. But just his kind words of, the world needs that. And so thank you for being out here and standing in that way and blessing people.
So that was a bigger experience than you usually do,
Sure.
right? So can you see how that created a bigger life for you by doing what you hadn't done before?
Yeah, I felt a weight lift off of me. I really did. And I went back to my car, and when I sat there and was counting my stash and the various things, I just started sobbing, because there was just really this, people are kind-hearted in this world, and we care for each other. And when we reach out and do that, it just really makes a big difference. When I could have, if I needed it, right, I could have gone and gotten a couple of meals that day with that money. And so when I drove off, I went down to the next exit to turn around, and there was a guy standing there with a sign, so I gave him the $18 and the water bottle and the granola bar and the fruit roll-up, and he just was so excited. He was just practically dancing, and so it was just really special.
So we live in an infinite universe.
We do. God is our source. It's an infinite supply, so you can never have more than enough of your share, and you always have more than enough of all that you need.
Can we give her a round of applause? Thank you. Isn't that an amazing story? So if you haven't given yourself the opportunity of going on your vision quest, these vision quests invite you to do a few things. Like the first thing that I want you to look at in your vision quest is I want you to leave the regular and routine of your life. And I want you to be willing to go alone. Because there's something about going alone where we have to trust God more. I want it to be an activity that has a level that it confronts you, in whatever level you're willing to be confronted. And 4, I want it to deepen your connection with yourself and your God. And that's why historically in Vision Quest, they've been about prayer and fasting, right? Because it's really about connecting to the deeper places in you and feeling the presence of God. And all of these have just been so amazing. So I want you to imagine for a second a circle, right? If you want to close your eyes, you can, but you don't need to. I want you to imagine a circle. And I want you to make that circle large enough for everything in your life. So your home, your family, your friends, your job, all the stuff you have, all the elements of your life are within the circle, right? And everything kind of fits. And now I want you to imagine that your vision quest is for an hour or 2 hours or a day. You're deciding to go outside that circle. You're deciding to make a bridge outside that circle to a bigger life. And that you get to decide. You get to decide how far outside your circle you go. You get to decide how long you stay outside your circle. Your vision quest is your opportunity to live a bigger life, and you are 100% able to decide what that is for you. Two of the things that we found in this over and over again is that when you leave that circle and have a new experience, it increases the probability that you're going to create and experience more of the things that you want. And I want you to really hear that. That every time you go outside your circle, it increases the probability that you're going to create a life that's bigger than that. Because as you go outside your circle and you know that you can survive, what also happens is it lowers your fears. And that's what tonight's all about. It's about moving beyond what you know. Tonight's lesson is about confronting your fears. And so tonight, I want you to imagine that I'm going to take you to a haunted house. How many of you love haunted? Does anybody in the room love haunted houses? Raise your hand. I want to see you because you are not me, right? I mean, I so do not like haunted houses. And in fact, I have only been like one time to a haunted house, and that's because they needed a YOU sponsor here, and the kids asked me to go. And I'm like the biggest chicken in the whole world. I do not like to be scared. I remember the first scary movie I ever saw was at our next door neighbors, and our houses were really just right next. Our next door neighbor, they had 3 kids, we had 3 kids, and we were over there, and we'd asked permission to watch this scary movie that we had no business watching as kids, right? It was a scary movie, and when it was over, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I had to go from their front door to my front door. And our driveways, they were kind of circular driveways, but they kind of touched in the middle, and they kind of then went into our garages. And in the middle of the driveways, on their side and our side, our dads tended to park their cars on the side, like on the driveway in front of the side yard. So there were 2 cars, like parked there. And I was convinced that between those 2 cars was every scary thing that I'd just seen in that movie. And I had to go from their front door to my front door, and guess how fast I moved? You have never seen a little kid move so fast, and heart rate beating. Just when I got to our front door, I almost didn't even bother to open the door, right? I was going right through it, right? So tonight, I'm going to take you to a haunted house. And my question for you tonight is, are you going to go through this haunted house slowly, or are you going to go through this haunted house fast? See, have you ever been to one of those things? They kind of reach out and grab you. Like you go around the corner and there's like, right? And so one of the things I want you to look at is I'm probably not the only one that in the presence of my fears, I am willing to move fast. Anybody else? Right? And what I want you to see, right, is that we have this tendency to move fast when we're afraid. And I want to ask you, when you're moving fast, are you conscious or unconscious? When you're living your life now, are you moving fast or are you moving slow? As a people, as a nation, as a country, are we moving fast or are we moving slow? So if there's this tendency, the faster we move, the more we tend to be unconscious. Now, there's times when you're moving fast, you feel like you're in the zen, it's in the flow, and everything's working. But that's not how most of us are moving fast, right? When most of us are moving fast, we tend to be what? Unconscious. We tend to be unconscious. And we're moving fast, so we don't have to think, we don't have to feel, we can what? Just get it done. I can go from my neighbor's house to my house. I didn't want to have an experience. The whole point of moving fast was not to have an experience. I didn't want to meet the boogeyman between the two cars, right? So what I want you to see tonight is that in the presence of your fears, you're moving faster. And moving fast is not supporting you in being conscious, intentional, awake, or even spiritual. And what if tonight, in the presence of the places where you are the most afraid, you make the conscious decision to slow down? Could you actually slow down in the presence of your fears to see if by chance God was still there? So tonight, I'm going to give you 3 strategies, if you will, for dealing with your fears. 3 ways to confront your fears in a non-confrontive way. 3 ways to experience a life that is greater, and they all have to do with you slowing down. And I know it seems absolutely counterintuitive in the places that you're the most afraid to slow down, but one of the things that we found as people were doing their vision quest is that when they were willing to set an intention, to decide what thought they want to have. I invited, if you were on the call on Sunday night, I do a call now on Sunday nights regarding this vision quest. And if you want to be on the call, they'll shoot up my email and you can email me and I'll get you on the list, right? But what we found over and over again is that if you slow down, you can actually be intentional. You can actually decide the thought that you want to think. And you can actually decide how much you're going to open your heart. Now, at 90 miles an hour, do you think your heart is automatically open, or do you think it has a high probability of being closed? If you're scared, do you think your heart is open or closed? Okay, so what I want you to see is that some of us are spending the majority of our time being afraid. And because we're spending the majority of our time being afraid, we are not intentionally creating our life. We're not intentionally deciding what's the thoughts that we're going to think, what's the dominant way that we're going to react. We just react from this automatic place over and over and over again. And we're spending most of our time with our heart closed, and only rarely opening our heart when we finally feel safe enough to open our heart. And the first way that I want to talk to you tonight about is the first strategy I want you to look at in dealing with your fears is I want you to slow down enough to make 2 decisions. That's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to invite you to slow down enough to make 2 decisions. And the first decision I want you to make is, what is the thought that I'm going to hold in my mind? When you're scared, what do you want your dominant thought to be? And what I invited people on the call on Sunday night was to say, I can. Will you say that with me? I can. Now, what I invited people to do is on their vision quest, I wanted them to say over and over again, to hold the thought that they can. Because when you begin to entertain the idea that I can, then all kinds of things are going to happen. And if I'm inviting you to be confronted over and over again, I want you to actually have the dominant idea in your mind that I can. Because the moment you have the idea, I can't, you're right. But the moment you begin to entertain the idea of I can, there's a whole nother level of life that shows up for you. I can. And then I want you to have a dominant thought. And the second part of this process is to slow down enough to open your heart. But I don't want to feel when I'm afraid. I don't want to love when I'm afraid. I just want to get out of fear. If that strategy worked, I would suggest you do it. But how many of you have noticed that you've spent weeks or months or even years being afraid, just going from one fearful experience to the next, missing the opportunity throughout all of it to open your heart? So when you slow down, now you're in charge. Slow down, and now you're in control. And who are you in control of? Are you in control of what everybody else is doing? No, you're in control of what? Yourself. So the first strategy in the presence of fear, slow down. And decide what's the thought you want to think. What's your intention, even in the scary place? And could you open your heart? Now, second strategy. And this is going to sound even more crazy than the first strategy, right? So my strategies get more crazy as I go. And please know that I know that, right? That I'm actually smart enough to know that what I'm suggesting is going to sound weirder and weirder as I go. The second strategy is, I want you to do a fear inventory every day for 10 days. And what is a fear inventory? A fear inventory, it takes less than 5 minutes. Every day for 5 minutes, you get up and you decide, what are my fears? And you actually begin to be curious about what you're afraid of. Well, I'm afraid of global warming, or I'm afraid of nuclear holocaust, or I'm afraid that my spouse doesn't love me anymore, or I'm afraid that I'm not going to have enough money to make rent this month. You just write down all your fears. Write them down, 5 minutes. Do a quick 5-minute inventory of all your fears. And then I want you to give each fear a number 1 to 10, how severe that fear is. Right? So is it a 1 or is it a 10? Right? I want you to circle then all the fears that are 7 or higher. And for this project to really work, you need a fear buddy for 10 days. Right? That you're going to call your fear buddy and say, these are my dominant fears today. And you're going to say, the key word is not just intellectually, because that doesn't change anything. You're going to say, could you love me in the place where I'm the most afraid? Will you say that with me? Could you love me in the place where I'm the most afraid? Let me go to Scripture. 1 John 4 reads, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and he who fears has not yet been perfected in love. So, fear has to do with punishment. How many of you were raised with the idea of a punishing God? Anybody? Right? So the idea of a punishing God is that if you make a mistake, all of heaven and hell are going to be unleashed on you, right? That's kind of the concept. Or at least it's graded by how big of a mistake you made, by how much stuff's coming at you, right? Even the law of karma. How many of you have ever heard of the law of karma, right? The law of karma is just as scary, right? Because the law of karma says that if I make a mistake, it's going to come back to me, but I never know when. Right? But it's going to come back to me. And if it doesn't come back to me in this lifetime, it's going to come back to me in the other lifetime. And I'm not even going to know what I did before it grabs me. Right? There's this idea that you don't even get a clean slate at the end of your life. He can come back and get you the next time around. Or the 10th time around. Or the 100th time around. Right? So the idea of punishment, how prevalent is that in our life? We are so scared, right? So perfect love casts out fear. So when you can ask your prayer buddy, your fear buddy, your love buddy, would you love me in the place that I'm the most afraid? And you hear that they will. Do you think your heart's going to open or close in that moment? Are you going to be able to look at your fears the same way because somebody can stand with you in your greatest fear and love you anyway? For fear to work, it's best if you don't know you have it. It's best if the fear is just kind of underneath the surface, pushing you, driving you, moving you unconsciously. But the moment you become conscious of your fears and share it with another child of God who can love you right there, they begin to evaporate. Because the truth is, there's nothing to them. It's just your mind scaring the bejeebas out of you. And bejeebas is a word in the Old Testament. I found it one time, right? Right? They just scared the bejeebas out of you. And tonight, what if you just had one person that you could share your fears with? Can you imagine that would make a difference? That you would no longer need to hide from your own fears any longer. Let me give you number 3. 3 is from the book that I taught a few years ago called The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer. And then chapter 8 talks about let go now or fall. And I'm going to read a little bit of it. The natural ups and downs of life can either generate personal growth or create personal fears. Which of these dominates is completely dependent on how we view change. If we have a lot of fear, we won't like change, right? Does that make sense there? If we have a lot of fear, we won't like change. You will try to create a world that is predictable, controllable, definable. You'll try to create a world that doesn't stimulate your fears. You can only do one of 2 things with fear. You can recognize that you have it and work to release it, or you can keep it and try to hide from it. Because people don't deal with their fears objectively, they don't understand it. They end up keeping their fears, trying to prevent things from happening that will stimulate them. They go through life attempting to create safe, controllable, by defining how they need life to be in order to be okay. If you do this, the world becomes threatening. Life becomes a me against it situation. Your definition of desirable and undesirable, as well as good and bad, all come because you have defined how things need to be in order to be okay. As you grow spiritually, you will realize that your attempts to protect yourself from problems actually create more problems. If you attempt to arrange people, places, and things so that they don't disturb you, you'll begin to feel like life is against you. You'll feel that life is a struggle, that every day is heavy because you have to control and fight everything. There will be competition, jealousy, and just more fear. You are fighting with creation, and that's why it makes sense. Fighting with creation itself, the most frightening thing in your life. The alternative is to decide to not fight with life. You realize and accept that life is not under your control. Will you say that with me? Life is not under my control. One more time. Life is not under my control. Life is continually changing. If you're trying to control it, you'll never be able to fully live. Instead of living life, you'll be afraid of life. That which is blocked and buried within you forms the root of your fears. Fear is causing blockage in the energy flow. When energy is blocked, it cannot come up to feed your heart. Therefore, your heart becomes weak. When your heart is weak, it becomes sustainable to lower vibrations, and one of the lowest vibrations is fear. Fear is the cause of every problem. The root of all prejudice and negative emotions of anger, jealousy, and possessiveness, the purpose of spiritual evolution, I want to read this again. The purpose of spiritual evolution is to remove the blockages that cause your fear. If you truly want to grow spiritually, you'll realize that keeping your stuff is keeping you trapped. Life is surrounding you with people and situations to stimulate your growth. How many of us like that? How many of us don't? If you don't have to decide who is right and wrong. You don't have to worry about other people's issues. You only have to be willing to open your heart in the face of anything and everything and permit the purification that takes place in love. When your stuff comes up and hits you, gets you, let it go right when that happens. Because it's actually harder to let go of it later. It won't be easier if you explore it, play with it, try to solve it. It won't be easier if you think about it, talk about it, try to erase some of it. If you want to be free at the core of your being, you must let go right away, because it's not easier later. In order to live by this law, you must understand its principles. First, you must be aware that there is something within you that needs to be released. Can everybody think of at least one fear in their life that if they let go of tonight, their life would be substantially different? Does everybody have at least one? If you don't, borrow one of your neighbors, all right? Let it go right. You must be aware that you are the one noticing your stuff coming up, are distinct from the one of you that's experiencing it. If you are noticing it, who are you? The place of centered awareness is the seat of the witness, the seat of the self. It is only this seat that we must let go. As long as we're watching it, you're not getting lost in it. What he's talking about is the ability that we have to have an experience and then witness ourselves having experience. Have you all had that experience? So that you're having an experience, wow, I'm really reacting like a jerk right here, right? And then there's a part of you right here that can witness you freaking out. Wow, he's really ugly when he freaks out, right? Or isn't that cute? He's just scared, right? So you're having an experience, and part of you is say it with me, witnessing it. Thank you. When you're in the state of disturbance, your tendency will be to act in an order to fix things. You don't have the clarity to see what's going on. You just want the disturbance to stop. You start getting into survival instincts. You may feel that you have something dramatic that will save the situation. You will dump your stuff into the world. It's like painting the world in your stuff. You get more of it, and it surrounds everything. No matter what happens to you, just turn your eyes upward. Relax your heart. Your heart will then purify, and you never need to fall. Use this lesson to strengthen the resolve. Let it go right now. Let it go right now. Do not rationalize it, blame it, figure it out. Don't do anything. Just immediately allow the energy to go back to the highest center of consciousness. So you ready to try this one? Okay, so I want you to think of a time in the last day or so when you've been upset. Does everybody have one? Like maybe you've been afraid, maybe you've been upset, maybe you said something stupid, maybe somebody else said something stupid. You just get to pick, right? Any of your interactions. Could be work, personal life, whatever. And I want you to see the upset, right? So if you want to, you can close your eyes, but you don't have to, right? I'm not sure I'd close my eyes in this room, but I'm just teasing, I would. Right? So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you just to see your upset out in front of you. And I want to see if you can kind of lean back behind your upset. So that now there's a space between you and your upset. It's actually outside of your life. It's actually outside of your heart. And feel yourself just lean back and let your upset be out here. Now there tends to be a part of us that now wants to fix our upset and lean back into it. Instead of leaning back into it, I want you to see if you're willing to just open your heart and look up. Let your eyeballs actually move up. You don't have to move your whole head. You can even just keep your eyes closed. But just let your eyeballs go up. And let God, let the infinite, wash through you and wash away the upset. That you have a right just to let it go. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to dance with it. You don't have to marry it. You don't have to spend 10 years analyzing it. You can just let it go. Keep your eyes up. Open your heart. And let the energy just be washed away. The next time you're afraid, I want you to see your fear outside of you. You can see it as anything you want to see it. You can just see it as energy. Move it outside of you Let your eyes go up. Open your heart. Let your heart become soft. And let the energy of God just wash it away. Let's try it one more time. I want you to see any upset in your life, a fear, a concern, a disappointment, a frustration. I want you to lean back. I want you to shift so that that energy is now outside of you. I want you to open your eyes or turn your eyes up toward God, toward the higher vibration, the higher possibility, the higher level of good. Open your heart and just let Spirit just wash that away. That there's nothing that you need to do. That fear was created by your own mind. It's not real. As you look up and open your heart, the fear washes away. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks for the ability to let go of the illusions of our fears, to let go of the story of our upset, to let go of all the hurt and pain from the past and simply remove it, lean back, and give it to God. In the name and through the power of the living Christ, we give thanks. And so it is. Amen. Could you do it? Does it feel great? Nobody did it? Could you do it? Now, what if it was really that easy? What if your mind is creating all these stories that you're working on and fixing and doing all this work on and solving and talking about, taking apart and talking to your friends about and going for coffee to solve? And what if you just move it out here, open your heart, look to God, and let the divine just take it away? Would that be easier or harder than the way you're doing it now? Can you see that over and over again that you don't have to dance with all the scary demons that your mind has created for you? Was there anything between those two cars when I was running from my neighbor's house to my house? Was there anything there? Nothing. If I had done that run 100 times, would I feel any better? Right? It's not until we stop, slow down, and get intentional and conscious and spiritual that our life actually begins to change. Because you could run from your fears to the day you die, and you will take your fears to the grave. Or you can stop, move them out to here, look up, and let God wash them away. You ready to try it? So guess what your homework is this week? Right? On your vision quest, on your life, I want you to start confronting your fears. Right? I don't want you to fix them. I don't want you to solve them. I don't want you to talk to 100 people about them. I want you to shift them out here and dissolve them. Are you willing to try? Here, I'm going to talk about the mountaintop experience. That once you're willing to go beyond what you know, once you're willing to confront your fears over and over again, what it leads to is a greater experience of God, a greater experience of yourself. It leads to a profound spiritual experience. And that's what we're going to focus on next week is how do we open to those profound spiritual experience? Because when we're no longer afraid, does life get easier or harder? So much easier. So that's going to be the focus.
That was meant to be with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Together, a perfect protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. God bless you all. Have a great week. Thanks for being here.